Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and we have a stunner here. Full review. Now, just so you know, this does come in multiple different options, so there are different color options, and I'm going to link everything down in the description. So, starting this off, we got a lot to get into. I've tested this thing thoroughly, and I really wanted to test the M390 because this is the first time I've tested Kubi's M390. Now, yes, this knife is OEM'd by Kubi. Kubi is the one that manufactured it and did build it. So, I've done lots of Kubi reviews. I've tested lots of Kubi knives, but I've never tested their M390, so I wanted to, and I did. I tested this thing quite a bit. I've put multiple edges on it, and we'll get into all that here in just a second. But first, we have an M390 bead blasted blade. Then we have a titanium frame lock with titanium hardware, T8s all the way around. I love to see that. Titanium milled pocket clip, titanium milled backspacer, and the colors really pop. It definitely is a little bit of a stunner. But like I said, it does come in different color options if this isn't your jam. Then we have the carbon fiber. The carbon fiber has like a hammered finish, which I also really like. It looks pretty good. Adds some texture too. The inlays are fit in there pretty good. No complaints on that. You know, you kind of think you see little gaps, but it's not. It's the hammered finish, which, you know, like I said, it does look pretty good. It is nice and centered, and we're going to get to taking it apart and all that stuff here in a minute. The lockup, rock solid, no play any direction, and the action now, right, is really good. From the start, it was not. We'll get into that, but the action now is amazing. Really, really good detent. Solid detent, whether it's the flipping action, and the flipper tab is nice and comfortable. I love the type of jimping that's on this flipper tab. It's the exact kind of jimping I personally like, and the detent has a nice break on it. Now, the lock bar access is very generous, really good lock bar access, and the detent is nice and early, so it's easy to get past, and it's basically fall shut action. Very, very smooth. Not a guillotine, but it's getting there. With a little influence, it just drops. Now, the thumb studs are nice and big. Love these thumb studs. Really comfortable. The type of grip you get around the knife and where the thumb studs are placed offers you a lot of leverage into that flick. And because they're so big, in the way they have the rings around them, offers a great placement for your thumb to kick off. Very comfortable, lots of leverage, and same goes for the reverse flick. So all of those are really, really good. The action is great. I like the action on it quite a bit. Now, the ergos and cutting, the geometry of the blade. It's not a super thin grind or anything like that, but because it's such a broad blade, it does have decent geometry, especially for a blade that's 20 thousandths behind the edge. So it's 20 thousandths behind the edge, but the blade is, you know, a pretty thick blade stock. But, you know, like I said, the blade grind is nice and broad, nice and tall, so it has the ability to get down, you know, nice and slow down to the edge instead of dramatic. Coupled with the ergos, which are super comfortable. The ergos, whether you're choked up or choked back, are really, really good. Super comfortable in the hand, and you get a ton of leverage into your cuts. Coupled with this broad flat ground blade, this thing pushes through materials very nicely. It cuts extremely well, and you have a nice big finger choil, so even if you need the fattest part of your finger in there, you can get it. So going through materials, really nice. Like I said, the ergos are super comfortable. Even in the reverse grip, you can do it. It's not the most comfortable, but you can do it. So if you're going to cut some straps, I definitely did it work, and it was just fine. The tip, or the blade shape, I should say, is similar to a spear point, but I still would consider it a drop point, but really good for utility cuts, opening things up, you know, anything you need to do with the tip. the belly is not too big, and it allows you to drag things into the edge really nicely using the tip. So really good all the way around, nice and versatile blade shape, and like I said, it works really good. Now the choil things do get caught in the choil a little bit, but you can choke up and block it with your finger if you'd like. The spine is crowned, and then it goes to a flat portion. I really like this part about it. So we have a crowned spine, and then it goes to a flat portion of the blade, which tapers down to the tip. So it helps bring some strength down to the tip while also keeping it nice and acute. So it's going to be a relatively durable tip, but also, good for use, So the jimping on the spine isn't very good though, so it might as well not be there. It doesn't offer any traction or do anything for you, so it's kind of just for, eye appeal. Now, the clipping carry works really good. The clip slips in and out of the pocket very nice. The ramp on the clip, there's not too much tension, and it does get over your jeans or whatever you're wearing very nicely and slips in and out very nicely. It has a nice imprint. It's not too heavy, not too light. It's, just a good size. Personally, I think so. I don't think it's too large, and there's nothing dramatic about the size or anything. Hidden lanyard pin in the back, so if you do like that stuff. Now, let's talk about the steel and sharpening it. So, I did sharpen it multiple times. I freehanded it multiple times. I did a toothy edge first, and I wanted to sharpen it pretty quickly because I didn't get it brand new from the factory. Even if I did, I don't really like factory edges. Another thing, I wanted to lay back the angle a little bit, which will increase the cutting performance. I laid it back to 17 degrees per side, and now it's 20 thousandths behind the edge, and that was after sharpening it. So 17 degrees per side, 20 thousandths behind the edge, and on the stone, the steel felt good. No problem with the steel on the stone. It felt fine. Going through all my stones, it was pretty decent, and it deburred just fine. Now, through use, first of all, the toothy edge went fine. No problems. I noticed the edge didn't last that long, but it also was a really toothy edge. So I wound up putting a polished edge on it. Now the polished edge came out really good. It deburred really good. It had a lot of bite, felt really good. But through some use and not really heavy use, I did get a little bit of microchipping in the flat area down here. So I would say that, in its M390 is tough for production companies to do to its optimal performance across the board through each model, just because it's finicky. So I don't expect it, and I'm really not going to complain about that too much, just because it is what it is. Now, by the third edge, polished edge, it still was a thing, not horrible, and I want to say that it did hone and strop back very well. So stropping came right back, honing very easy, and like I said, the stone, it felt okay on the stone, deburred just fine. I just noticed a little bit of microchipping. That, like I said, did come out really easily with a little bit of honing and stropping. So going into some negative things really quick. One, when I first got it, it was gritty. Right out of the box, it was really gritty. So I took it apart and I noticed there was a couple hairs in the pivot. So I thought that was it. I didn't really give it a deep cleaning or anything. I just took them out, wiped down the pivot, put it back together, and it mostly went away. But I still noticed that there was still a little bit of grit to it. And I was thinking that it was just the blasted finish. It's the detent ball that needs to basically break through the blasted finish. It needs to break in a nice detent track. But when I took it apart the second time, I noticed blasting powder still in the inner parts. I cleaned every part off really nicely and got all that blasting powder off. And then I noticed it came back. The action was really good. like 98% better. So it still has, I can tell the detent ball still needs to break completely through the bead blasted finish, but it is so much better. Very, very good. I'm very happy with the action, but I just think that there was blasting powder still left in it from the factory. It is what it is. Was it that big of a deal? No, it was easy to clean up, but it still was a thing. Next thing, I wish the plunge grind was a little, let me just spray it right here, was a little bit better. If you notice, the plunge grind goes all the way down to almost the edge. I'd like to see the plunge grind stop back here, because it's only going to be maybe 1 or 2 more edges, and I'm going to start seeing a smile. Now, I do notice that it's a little funny. It plays with the light a little bit. So in some lights, you see how the line right here goes straight down to the edge. And then in others, it kind of doesn't. So it might not. It's kind of one of those things where you kind of got to wait to see. But I'd just rather see a plunge grind just tell me right off the bat that it's far out of the way. And in this case, it does taper down to the edge. But I haven't gotten a smile yet, and I put 3 edges on it, so, and I've honed it and everything else, so I think, though, eventually it's going to, after a few more edges, which is quite a bit of sharpening, to be honest. Now, next thing, and this is probably going to be more, personal, I think, so the type of ano, right? It looks really good. It does. And this is the type of finish. Like, you notice how these parts don't match perfectly. This is green, this is blue, this is darker blue. Well, sometimes that happens in the anodizing where the titanium is just a little different parts, whatever, and it's just impossible to match perfectly. But also, when it's not a polished finish and it's a blasted finish like these are, it also makes basically like the crystallization of the anodizing is like layers. So the reason why this is more green now is because this is what's been handled the most. So it's basically knocked down the blue from it. Now, if this was polished, it wouldn't do that, at least as easily. So but to me, sometimes I like that because it makes it to where it changes color over time, and you can kind of see the wearing parts, and that's kind of cool. Like, if you notice on the thumb stud, there's actually like purple areas to it that look really cool. I don't know if the light will pick it up, but there's like purple hues to it, which looks really cool. So, but all in all, oh yeah, taking it apart too, there is ceramic caged bearings that are on a washer, so it's not titanium on the ceramic bearings, or the bearings aren't rolling on titanium. That's really cool. The hardware's T8s all the way around. I do like seeing that. It is titanium hardware, all premium materials here, but I'm not a big fan of the blasted finish on the blade. To me personally, I think it's more of a budget option to go with when you see the bead blasted finish. I would way rather see a satin or a stone washed finish. The blasted finish, it gets I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of it. It scratches up easily. It can rust easier. It's M390, so I'm not worried about the rust, but I would just prefer, satin or stone washed. But all in all, solid knife, really good knife. I do like it quite a bit. It looks good. It does carry really good. The action's really good. It cuts really good. It sharpens up really good. It did take a very sharp edge. Did take a nice polished edge too. So that's why I don't think that this is like a really soft M390 or anything. I just, think it's M390. It's just how M390 is. Sometimes it's really, really good, and sometimes it's really bad, and then everything else is in between. And this is, kind of like what you expect sometimes, just, from M390. Now, I don't know how it would do in a controlled test with edge retention, but I don't think it would, do outstanding, to be honest. Either way, though, It is a good quality knife. I do like the knife quite a bit. I love the blade shape, love the ergos, love the grind, like how it cuts, and it does everything you want an EDC knife to do. And it looks good doing it. So there you guys go. I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.